right, big news coming in. There are reports suggesting that Israel has for now decided to delay the ground offensive into Gaza. Remember, it does appear imminent for now because specifically after the massacre and the hostages that are still in Gaza. But Israel, according to reports surfacing, has agreed to delay, not cancel, delay an expected invasion of Gaza Strip. United States has said it is also rushing more missile defenses to the region to protect that space. And remember, to protect specifically American troops also who are deployed. According to the Wall Street Journal, we are told these reports are surfacing. US officials have so far persuaded Israel to for now hold off until US air defense systems are properly placed in the region if required. US military, other officials have believed their forces can be targeted, as is being witnessed in other parts of the Middle East, that there could be targeting of American troops also. And that's one of the reasons that for now the ground offensive could possibly be delayed. All right, that's the big news coming in, that this could be, at least for now, a delay, at least of a few days, if Israel, which has constantly said that this is only a beginning. Benjamin Netanyahu himself has made a statement to say that the ground offensive will go ahead. Remember, they're talking about 200 hostages that need to be rescued. It's already been 20 days. There's also a 9-month-old baby. There are elderly with diseases. There are young men and women, girls who are still hostage. Nobody knows about their whereabouts, of how they are being kept. Some of these girls, and 2 girls that my research has also showed, are orphaned. And they have been kept as hostages now by the Hamas. But amid all of this, troops and tanks are being deployed right on the Gaza border by Israel. Israel has said they want to set an example and they will target and eliminate Hamas terror hideouts. But it will not be easy. So while the troops are ready, they are delayed for now. Coming in from the Wall Street Journal, the reason is that Israel has agreed to delay because United States wants to ensure it has enough missile defenses into the region and ensure that its own troops are not harmed in any way, do not feel the attack. Shiv Arur is joining me on the latest on that. Shiv, this could be a big step if the USA in some way has been able to have Israel delay the ground offensive. But what do you think could be the reasons for that? Because USA is also in some way a player in this right now.
You know, whether the United States likes it or not, Pooja, it is already a main player in what's playing out right now in the region. The United States was the first mover, remember, to deploy aircraft carrier battle group in the Mediterranean. They deployed a second aircraft battle group in the Persian Gulf. You've got a US intelligence report now suggesting that Iran had a direct hand in training Hamas troops on their soil, as late as September, just before the October 7th massacre. So this has become, a conflict way beyond Israel versus Hamas or Israel versus Gaza. So the United States obviously has concerns. We've got to remember that Joe Biden, going into an election year, is very, very concerned about the possibility of casualties among U.S. troops. U.S. troops, are deployed in huge numbers in the Middle East, whether it is in Qatar, Bahrain, other places. The United States, in an election year especially, President Biden knows has zero appetite for any casualties. Biden is already being, attacked quite a bit politically for the U.S. involvement in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The remnants of U.S. involvement in Afghanistan are still being felt politically, and therefore to be embroiled in another West Asian crisis is unpalatable to most Americans, and especially going into an election year. And that's one of the reasons why, given that any kind of escalation or ground operation by Israel into the Gaza Strip will translate almost definitely into a kind of regional escalation, which is already happening, the United States sees it as inevitable that it will have to participate in some form or the other. Nobody deploys aircraft carrier battle groups, of course they are for deterrence, but nobody deploys military equipment unless you're fully prepared politically and otherwise to use it. And the US, remember, has already used anti-missile systems against, Houthi rebel missiles that were fired from Yemen towards Israel just a few days ago. So that kind of kinetic operation, weapon versus weapon, has already happened between the United States and Iran's proxies. Whether this will blow up into a direct conflict needs to be seen. whatever it is, the bottom line is, like you rightly said, missile defense systems take time to set up. There are already missile defense systems in the region,
Yes.
but the United States has probably assessed that given the scale of the threat, given that this could, escalate into an all-out, Arab world versus Israel conflict,
Exactly.
the United States wants to make sure it covers all its bases, get its defenses in place, and make sure that its own troops are not harmed in any way.
Shiv, I want to understand from you the ground sentiment, because in Israel there must be a lot of people who are still mourning, there are people who are still unaccounted for, who are missing. There are hostages, over 200 in number, including children in Gaza. So there is also a pressure that's building on Benjamin Netanyahu. While it is not easy to also explain why they want to go ahead with the ground offensive, that could lead to several civilian casualties in Palestine, because Hamas would love to have more dead bodies being seen to the world, shown to the world, so that there is a sympathy factor that Hamas also gets. How is that really playing out on the ground?
Look, there is no doubt whatsoever that there is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Israel and Palestine and the Hamas may quibble over numbers and the finer details of what's going on. But the fact that innocents are dying in Gaza is beyond doubt. Having said that, the dilemma for Israel is very, very real, and it's actually mounting with each day. There is this overarching public pressure from one section, Pooja, for a ground operation, because, like you said, the anger and fury in Israeli society has never been this high, perhaps, the kind of impulse and the sentiment to completely obliterate Hamas is very, very prevalent. On the other hand, like for example, later today we'll be reporting from a large protest that has been planned by the families of the hostages, over 200 of them, and they are represented by a large part of civil society as well, who believe that you cannot negotiate with terrorists. You have to effect a prisoner exchange, otherwise these people are going to die, because 20 whole days later, Hamas has had enough time to understand what's going on, to reconfigure its own demands, to understand what the Israeli psyche perhaps is at some level, and also be able to war game what the next steps could actually be. So the shrinking window of a ground opportunity or a ground operation opportunity, is something that Israel looks at very directly, and that's the reason why, what happens over the next 72 to 96 hours will be crucial. On the one hand, you've got the United States calling on Israel to slow down and not really get into this ground operation. On the inside, there's a huge amount of public anger against Prime Minister Netanyahu. So this is a very, very difficult situation to be in. And remember, this is a country, Pooja, that is still coming to terms with the scale of the intelligence failure of October the 7th. It still hasn't had, the luxury or the time to, deal with that, to digest that. And it is having to, execute, these operations against Gaza, against Syria, against the Hezbollah, and in the West Bank. So this is a 360-degree dilemma for Israel.